Hi, this is Professor Shaun Foster, and this is an introduction to UVs. So what are UVs? They're a two-dimensional coordinate system for placing images onto three-dimensional surfaces. So, for example, we have a two-dimensional image of the Earth, and we want to wrap it onto a three-dimensional globe. And the three-dimensional globe is described in XYZ coordinate space. And basically the U and V's just describe an X and a Y coordinate system. But instead of calling it X and Y twice, which might confuse things, they call it U and V. So in addition to what are UVs, there's some additional terminology, lingo that you need to know in order to help you get started. And here's a starting point. The 0 to 1 space, texture borders, what are those? What are shells? Surface normals and UV direction, texture stretching, and the UV transform tool. So let's just go through all of those, and that'll sort of lay a foundation for getting started with the UVing process. And when I describe those terms when I'm doing the UV process, it'll all sort of make sense. So let me switch quickly to Maya. In Maya, you get to the main UV editor in the polygons menu. So hitting F3 will take you to polygons. And then under edit UVs at the very bottom, the UV texture editor can come up. And so on this object that I'm working on for a project right now, I've started to lay out some UVs, but I've mucked them up a little bit in order to give a demonstration for you. So first of all, what is the 0 to 1 space? Well, we've got this coordinate, this grid laid out right here. And the coordinate system 0, 0 is in the middle. And the positive 1 is here, and the positive 1 is here. And really, this is where you want, at the end of the UVing process, you want to pack all of your UVs into this 0 to 1 space. When you right-click inside the UV editor, you can see that you can select UVs. But if you want to select a whole piece, a contiguous piece of UV, you can select a UV in that object, or multiple, and then right-click, control right-click, and say to shell. And now you can move around that whole piece, which is a UV shell. And in addition, what I often do when I get started is I turn on the texture borders for the UVs. And what that does is it creates a thicker line around the object where the UVs start and end. And those are the texture borders. So, for example, if we wanted to have some sort of tileable texture, you would want to make that, those, or, if you were going to start and stop a texture, this is where the texture is going to stop. And you can select edges, and you'll get the corresponding selection inside of Maya, the main Maya viewport. Okay, so we've defined texture borders, shells, and the 0 to 1 space. What about surface normals and UV direction? These are important to understand because there's a strong correlation to how the UVs deal with textures, and if the normals are facing in the wrong direction, you can also have some texture problems. So you can display the texture borders. You can display the normals under display polygons and then face normals. And you want them to all be facing in the same direction. Same thing goes with your UVs. And you can diagnose your UVs by pushing this button. If some are facing the wrong direction, they'll turn red. That means those UVs are flipped. So just remember, make sure your surface normals are facing the correct direction, and take a look at those. One way to ensure that they're all facing the right direction is to go under normals and conform. That will force all of the normals to face in one direction. So let's turn those off. Another way to display those is to shift right click, go under polygon display, and toggle face normals. And let's flip this in the right direction. So these can help you, these objects right here, these two buttons can help you flip your shells in different directions. So the next thing is texture stretching. So how do I know if my textures that I'm going to apply onto this object will stretch or not? Well, I've made, you can use a checker pattern. That's a common application. The idea is that if you have a known square, an image that has a bunch of squares on it, that's a two-dimensional image, and you place it on your three-dimensional object, if you notice that the squares aren't square when they're on the three-dimensional object, you've got some texture stretching. So in order to solve a few problems down the road, I've made a reference image that not only has squares, but it also has letters and numbers on there. Because if your UVs are flipped, like I had this one flipped, so that would be right in here. Actually, let's flip this one. And I've also already applied that reference texture on there. And so now you can see, if I zoom in here, that my goal is to have these UVs showing the texture to the camera, and basically what I've got is backwards numbers and backwards letters. And so I've got flipped textures here. So we can flip that. Also, I've got very stretched textures on this object right here. You can see that they're definitely not square. So what can I do? I can start moving I can treat these UVs just like I would in Maya. I can scale them and move them around. And I can, in order to sort of better see these, sometimes you'll need to increase the tiling on your textures. So you can go into the 2D placement node and increase the tiling on that texture. So now we have a better sense of the way those UVs are working. And so this shell corresponded to this piece of geometry. So we can see what way do we need to scale it. Now it's starting to look better. Great. So, and you know, the goal is also to get the same kind of texture density, meaning that the squares on this object should be the same size on all of the objects on your that you're working on. So this square should be close to the same square size as this. And then you know we've got the basic texture density correct. This looks a little stretched right here, but we could fix that later. All right, let's go back to the lecture. Okay, so we've sort of gone over the why in the lecture, right? You want to avoid stretched textures. Sometimes UVs become flipped, and UV seams need to be adjusted, which we'll get into, and we'll describe how to fix that with cutting and sewing UVs later on in this or the next lecture. So the goals are basically you pack those shells into the 0 to 1 space. You take as much advantage of the texture space within the 0 to 1 as possible, and avoid that texture stretching. When can you avoid doing UVs? Many people hate doing UVs. You can design your 3D objects if you didn't care whether if you didn't have to have bump mapping or precisely laid out patterns of texture. You could conceivably avoid doing UVs. You could do it or you could do a very sloppy job on your UVs. In addition to that, you can do texture projections where you can project textures onto the object, and that can work for some cases. And if your object isn't warping or moving, you can achieve that. You can achieve some sort of texture pattern on the object without having to worry about laying out your UVs. In addition to this, there's a new technology, well, it's a moderately new technology called PTEX. It was developed by Disney, and it basically breaks a mesh into all of its subdivisions, and it stores you basically can paint or project textures, and it stores how that object will hold the texture really efficiently. And so the idea is that hopefully in the future we'll sort of take the UVing process out of the equation. But for now, it's a highly important, it's still an extremely important skill to know in order to be able to do good texturing work. So, and then it's sort of, before I sign off here, the question is when to UV. Typically, the way I do UVing is I will do it during the modeling process. So I will build a model, and as I get the main mass of that model done, when it's a low poly model, I haven't built in too many details, I'll do a UVing pass on it. And then I will duplicate that object, and then I will keep modeling on it. I will up-res it. And I'll go over how you can, sometimes that object will get messed up with more UVs. You're sort of adding more detail, and there's a way of transferring your UVs that is really effective across objects. And having you doing the UVs when it has less geometry rather than more geometry is a good workflow. So in addition to that, you definitely want to do your UVs before you assign your textures to the model, and also before rigging an animation. So I've sort of gone over the main interface for the UV texture editor for some of the basic 0 to 1 coordinate space and some of the main buttons. Talked about applying a diagnostic texture and understanding the shell direction and UV borders. And so I'm going to wrap up this intro lecture by saying you can go to, I set up a blog, and you can grab this UV texture helper out on this UV layout.blogspot.com. And you can also go through, and I've done some very basic additional videos that go over the basic UVing process. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching.